The following video will explain how to test your WTH Study prior to launch with real participants. So the two main things that you're going to want to do is test your enrollment process as well as test your study arms. So the first thing that you will do is you will go ahead and create some test participants. So you're going to go to the Manage Participants tab and create a participant. And you will fill out the various fields to create your test participant and click Save. And one trick to note is that WTH only lets you have one unique email address. So Gmail, if you have a Gmail account, it actually has this really great feature where you can put in your email address and then do plus and do anything after that, and it's unique. So my first one would be my real Gmail +1@gmail.com, and then when I create my next person, it's going to be +2, +3, +4, etc. And that will allow me to create many participants, which as when you're testing, you will quickly find that you're going to have a lot. So that's one great trick. So once you create this participant, then what you're going to want to do is walk through the enrollment process to make sure that everything seems correct. So the participant will be created, you'll be taken to this page, and you'll go over to the enrollment tab. And again, these fields would not be filled out yet, but you would walk through each step and make sure that everything seems correct from what you built in Manage Study. Particularly important is if you have a screening step, you want to make sure that your eligibility criteria are matching what you expect. So you should try to force to screen yourself out and make sure you get screened out when you should, and make sure you're able to move forward when you should. So this should be pretty well tested to make sure that all the scenarios are covered. And then you also want to make sure that your prereqs are configured properly. So for example, I don't want to be able to set up my Fitbit before I consent to to participating in the study. So make sure that a participant can't fill out each step if they're not supposed to. And you only have to do testing enrollment on the back end if you are enrolling the participant either on the phone or in person. However, if participants are enrolling themselves at any point during the study, you will also want to test enrollment on the front end. So the same kind of process, you'll create an account, it will ask you for the information, and you'll just go through the steps on the front end. So let's actually grab this participant. So you can see I have all of this test information here. So I'm going to grab their username. I'm going to reset their password. Hopefully we can log in. Great. So you can see I already completed some of these steps, but typically this would say View, and you would want to walk through each step. So when I click View here, I'll see the screening, I'll see the instructions. So you'll want to check and make sure that the instructions look correct, look for any typos. And then you'll walk through each step. So you would click Complete and fill out the screening survey. And make sure that all of this seems correct. And if you don't want the participants to know that they're setting up their Fitbit, you might want to rename some of these things. So this is everything that the participant will view. Okay, I'm going to log out of this person. So that's testing the enrollment process. So once you know that that is all configured properly and people are screened out when they're supposed to be, you want to test your randomization. So for this study, we'll go to Enrollment tab under Manage Study. We'll go to Configure Randomization. So this study is pretty straightforward. It's a 4-arm and it has basic randomization, so it's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. Very straightforward. So I'm going to want to test this, and how I will do that is I will just go ahead and enroll a ton of participants, and I will make sure that there's approximately a 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 ratio across the 4 arms. So if I enroll 20 test participants, it should be 5 in each arm. And the way I do this to keep track is through a Google Doc that I just color. So you'll see here, I was testing for another study, and I have a control, an incentive, and a social arm. This is basic 1 to 1 to 1, like what I just showed you, and I looked through and made sure that everything seemed correct. So in the end, there were 6 participants in one arm, 5 in the other, and 4 in the last, which about makes sense. That's about 1 to 1 to 1. And that's how you test randomization. And then you should also be testing your devices. So you want to make sure that, if in the enrollment step, if the participant has to authorize a device, that the authorization is working properly, and also that we're getting data. So for example, if you're using a Fitbit, you'll want to go to Manage Data and filter for Fitbit and see, okay, and you can look for a particular participant, but here you can see, we got data today. And it appears that the device is working properly. And then that obviously means that the authorization works properly, but you can also look at this at the participant level. If you go to the Devices tab, you'll see this green box means that it's working. It says it's working, and you can see the last download attempt, which was just today, and we just got data not that long ago, so everything looks great. So once you're done testing enrollment, randomization, and devices, you want to enroll at least 1 participant in each of your study arms, and actually start them and go through what it's like to be in the arm. So let's go to a started participant. So I was enrolled in this lottery arm, and so every day I was experiencing these encounters. So I was uploading my steps and I was getting a daily lottery messaging. So you should make sure that, if I'm meeting my goal, I should be eligible for the lottery. If I'm not, then I shouldn't be. Make sure that I'm actually winning the lottery sometimes. And if the numbers are matching, make sure that I'm getting this exercise tip when I should be. Just really walking through and making sure what's happening in this daily schedule is what I'm receiving as a test participant. And you can catch a lot of bugs and issues with setup and misconfiguration this way by enrolling yourself. And again, you want to do this for each arm. I even recommend doing it for the control. If it is a longer study, like 6 months, and you have some things that are later on, like let's say you have an end of program survey, you can move it earlier. So like if it's a 6-month study, I can just move it to be a little bit earlier, make sure everything looks okay, and then I can move it back. You just have to remember to move it back. And then you also want to make sure that, incidents are being generated when they should be. So let's say you had an incident on the daily step count for anyone that walked over 20,000 steps, just to reach out to make sure that they're being safe. You want to one day reach 20,000 steps, which I know is quite the feat. and make sure that you are receiving an incident when this happens. And an incident will show up in your email generally, and it will also show up on this Manage Study page here. And just in general, test any edge case scenarios. So this is really important for bidirectional messaging, where, making sure you test out every single test case with different things that people could text back, and things like that. And if you have any questions about testing or want help with creating a test plan, please feel free to put in a JIRA help ticket, and we're more than happy to do that. And prior to study or project launch, you should definitely plan to sit down with someone on the Way to Health operations team just to review your enrollment and your study arms to make sure we don't come up with any issues down the line. This will definitely help to minimize, just in case there's something a little bit misconfigured, and it always helps to have a second set of eyes.